Life on the farm had been a quiet hum for as long as I could remember. But after Sarah passed, that hum turned into a low, constant drone of loneliness. Every creak of the old farmhouse, every whisper of the wind through the tall corn, it all just echoed her absence. We'd built this life together, out here in the American Midwest, far from the noise of cities. It was just us, the vast, starry nights and the rhythm of the seasons. Now, it was just me. My days fell into a routine built around quiet reflection and hard work. I'd wake before dawn, the air still crisp with the promise of morning, and head out to the fields. The physical labor was a good distraction, a way to keep my hands busy when my mind wanted to wander to memories that hurt too much. I'd fix fences, tend to the small gardens Sarah had loved so much, and watch the endless sky. At night, after a simple meal, I'd sit on the porch, the same porch where we used to watch meteor showers, and just be. Her presence was everywhere, in the scent of the honeysuckle she'd planted, in the worn rocking chair beside mine, in the silence that felt too big without her laughter. Then things started to shift. It began subtly, like a soft, out-of-tune note in the familiar symphony of my life. I started seeing numbers, specific ones, over and over. 11:11 on the clock, 3:33 on the radio display. It felt like someone was trying to get my attention, a gentle nudge from something unseen. And I started feeling it too, a presence. Not Sarah's ghost, not exactly, but something else. A quiet energy that would sometimes settle in the room with me, making the hairs on my arms stand up. It wasn't scary, just different. The dreams were the most vivid. Sarah started appearing to me, not as a memory, but as if she was right there, trying to tell me something important. Her eyes held a deep urgency I hadn't seen in life. She wouldn't speak with words, but with feelings, with images, cryptic messages about a coming change. Sometimes she'd just point to the sky or to a specific spot on my land, her expression serious, almost warning. I'd wake up with my heart pounding, a sense of profound unease mixed with a strange kind of hope. The natural world around me seemed to be reacting too. I saw light patterns in the sky that weren't stars or planes, just quick, silent streaks of color that vanished as fast as they appeared. The animals on the farm, usually so predictable, started behaving oddly. My old dog, Rusty, would stare intently at nothing. His ears perked up, sometimes letting out a low, mournful whine. The birds would fall silent for minutes at a time, a strange stillness descending over the fields. And there was a hum, a low, almost imperceptible vibration in the air, especially at night. It wasn't the sound of power lines or distant machinery. It felt deeper, ancient, like the earth itself was buzzing with a new energy. One night, the dream was different. Sarah was there, clearer than ever, standing in the middle of my largest field, the one closest to the old oak tree. She wasn't pointing this time. She was looking directly at me, her eyes conveying a profound sense of destiny. There was an urgency that pulled at my very core, a feeling that whatever was coming, whatever she was trying to tell me, was about to happen. I woke up with a deep, unsettling feeling that something monumental was on its way, something connected to all her messages, all these strange occurrences. It hit me then, a sudden, powerful understanding. My isolated life here on the farm, the quiet routine, the years of solitude after Sarah, it wasn't random. It was preparation. Every single thing had led me to this moment, to this realization. I was being prepared for something extraordinary, something beyond anything I could have imagined. It was a strange thought, almost too big to hold, but it felt true, deep down in my bones. The compulsion was irresistible. The image of Sarah in the field, her urgent gaze, wouldn't leave my mind. The next morning, I knew what I had to do. I had to go to that spot. Not because I understood why, but because I couldn't not go. It was a call, a summons, clearer than any spoken word. As I walked out into the cool morning air, the sun just barely touching the horizon, a profound spiritual awakening settled over me. I wasn't just a lonely farmer anymore. I was on a predetermined path, a journey laid out for me, for us. There was no fear, only a quiet anticipation, a sense of walking towards an unknown, yet fated encounter. The hum in the air felt stronger now, a gentle vibration guiding my steps. The wind seemed to whisper secrets as it rustled through the dry corn stalks. I didn't know what I would find, but I knew, with absolute certainty, that my life was about to change forever. This wasn't just a walk in the field, this was a pilgrimage to destiny. The sun had set, painting the sky in a final, fiery display of orange and purple, but I wasn't watching the beauty of it. My eyes were fixed on the distant field, the same one Sarah had pointed to in my dreams. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of dry earth and impending night. An intense silence had fallen over the farm, broken only by the chirping of crickets. It was a silence that felt heavy, pregnant with expectation. I stood there for what felt like an eternity, my breath catching in my throat, my heart a drum against my ribs. Then it began, a low, resonant hum, barely audible at first, like a distant swarm of bees, but growing steadily louder. It wasn't coming from the ground, but from above, from the vast, star-peppered canvas of the night sky. The hum vibrated through the soles of my boots, up my legs, and settled deep in my chest. It wasn't a painful feeling, more like a deep, internal thrumming, a primal chord being struck. I squinted, trying to pierce the darkness, but the source remained hidden, a phantom sound in the inky blackness. Suddenly, a brilliant, pulsating light appeared, high above the field. It wasn't a single beam, but a soft, expanding glow, like a nebula taking shape. It moved with an impossible smoothness, silently descending, growing larger and brighter with each passing second. The hum intensified, a deep vibration that shook the very ground beneath my feet. My old farmhouse, which had stood strong against countless storms, seemed to creak in protest. It wasn't a violent descent. There was no roar, no rush of wind. It was graceful, almost delicate, a silent ballet of light and sound. The light finally settled in the middle of my distant field, just as Sarah had shown me in my dreams. It touched down with a soft thud, a sound more felt than heard, and the ground trembled, a deep vibration running through me. A mix of terror and awe washed over me, a powerful current of emotions I couldn't control. My mind struggled to process what my eyes were seeing, what my body was feeling. This was real. All of it. An inexplicable force pulled me forward. My legs, which had been frozen in place, started moving, one step after another towards the landing site. My heart pounded, a frantic rhythm against the deep hum that still lingered in the air. The closer I got, the more details emerged. The light, though still bright, had softened, becoming an ethereal glow that illuminated a strange sight. There, partially embedded in the earth, was a craft. It was sleek, metallic, unlike anything I had ever seen or imagined. No rivets, no seams, just a smooth, seamless surface that reflected the muted starlight. It wasn't damaged in a way I understood. It looked more like it had melted into the soil, becoming one with the land. A strange, sweet scent filled the air around it, like honeysuckle and ozone mixed with something wonderfully alien. It was a smell that brought a feeling of profound peace, despite the chaos of the scene. The wreckage wasn't wreckage at all, but a beautiful, broken thing. I moved closer, my fear replaced by an overwhelming curiosity, a sense of rightness. I reached the edge of the impact crater, the metal still warm to the touch. The glow emanated from inside the craft, a soft, inviting light. I peered in, my breath catching in my throat. Inside, amidst what looked like shattered crystalline structures and glowing conduits, I saw a being. It wasn't monstrous, not terrifying in the way old sci-fi movies had depicted. It was fragile, luminous, and clearly injured. Its form was slender, almost impossibly so, with elongated limbs that seemed to shimmer in the low light. Its head was small, but dominated by large, dark eyes that held an incredible depth, an ancient wisdom. They were empathetic eyes, full of a pain that was both physical and something deeper, something cosmic. Its skin seemed translucent, almost glowing from within, radiating a gentle energy that warmed the cold night air. There was a sense of ancient wisdom etched on its form, a history written in every delicate curve. An immediate, unspoken connection formed between us. It wasn't telepathy in the way I understood it, but a feeling of recognition, a profound sense of knowing that washed over me. It was as if I knew this being from another time, another place. Its eyes met mine, and in that gaze, I felt a plea, a silent cry for help. The alien communicated then, not with words, but with images and pure emotion. I saw flashes of a homeworld, beautiful and vibrant, then images of conflict, of escape, of a desperate journey. I felt distress, a deep weariness, and then a clear, undeniable plea for help. There was also a warning, a sense of danger that was not for itself, but for something it carried, something it represented. A profound realization hit me. This being was not an enemy. It was not here to conquer or destroy. It was a refugee, a messenger, a soul in desperate need of protection. In that moment, standing there in the cold night air, with the hum still vibrating around us, I made an instantaneous silent vow. I would protect it. This wasn't a choice born of logic, but of deep empathy, a sense of destiny fulfilled. Sarah's messages, the strange occurrences, the hum in the air, it all led to this. My life, my quiet, solitary life, had been leading me to this very moment, to this promise. The immediate challenge was moving the alien. It was delicate, almost weightless, but awkward to carry. Its long limbs difficult to manage without causing further injury. I worked, slowly, carefully, my hands trembling slightly with a mix of awe and urgency. The creature made no sound, but I felt its pain, a dull ache that resonated in my own chest. My old pickup truck, usually used for hauling feed or lumber, became an emergency transport. I gently laid it across the back seat, wrapping it in an old blanket I kept there, trying to cushion its fragile form. The glowing subsided once it was away from the wreckage, leaving only the faintest luminescence under the blanket. Getting it into the barn without anyone seeing was a stealth operation born of pure instinct. It was the middle of the night, thankfully, and my closest neighbor was miles away, but the fear of discovery was already a cold knot in my stomach. I moved like a shadow, the alien a silent, trusting presence beside me. Inside the barn, I cleared a space in a corner, setting up a makeshift bed of hay and more blankets. It wasn't much, but it was hidden, safe, and most importantly, warm. The air in the barn, usually smelling of dust and dried grass, now held that strange, sweet alien scent, faint but persistent. The first few days were a blur of meticulous care and constant vigilance. I tended to its injuries as best I could, using what little first aid knowledge I had, but mostly relying on the alien's own resilience. Its translucent skin seemed to mend itself slowly, small glowing fissures knitting back together. It didn't eat or drink in any way I understood, but it seemed to draw energy from the air, from my presence, from something unseen. I spent hours just sitting with it, observing, learning. I learned to recognize the subtle shifts in its energy, the slight brightening of its eyes when it felt better, the dimming when it was in pain. This quiet space in my barn, away from the world, became a sanctuary, a place where two vastly different beings shared a fragile existence. As the alien slowly recovered, our telepathic bond deepened, becoming clearer, more profound. It wasn't just emotions anymore. It was images, concepts, entire landscapes of thought. It began to share visions of its homeworld, a place of breathtaking beauty, bathed in light from multiple suns. I saw towering structures that seemed to grow from the earth, not built upon it, and beings of light that moved with a grace I couldn't comprehend. Their civilization was ancient, far advanced, focused entirely on spiritual evolution and universal harmony. There were no wars, no hunger, no petty squabbles. Their existence was a tapestry of interconnectedness, each being a vital thread. Through these shared visions, I began to understand messages about the true nature of reality, about how everything in the universe was connected, a vast, intricate web of energy. It spoke of humanity's potential, a sleeping giant capable of incredible love and creation, but currently trapped in cycles of fear and division. The alien didn't have a name in the human sense. Its designation, as I came to understand it, was a series of resonant tones and images, a vibration that represented its essence, its purpose, its unique place in the cosmic harmony. I started calling it Kale, a sound that felt right, that resonated with the gentle hum it emitted. Kale observed humanity through my eyes, through my memories, and through the old television I sometimes turned on in the barn, muted, to give it a glimpse of our world. It expressed profound sadness over our wars, our constant greed, our endless divisions. It saw the suffering we inflicted upon ourselves and each other, a stark contrast to the harmony of its own world. Yet, despite the sorrow, there was always a spark of hope in its communications, a belief in our capacity for love and creation. It showed me visions of parallel realities, different timelines branching out from every choice we made, and how the choices we made now were crucial for our future. Kyle revealed its purpose, not just to me, but to humanity. It was here to deliver a critical message, a warning, and a guide for our spiritual awakening. It spoke of a coming juncture, a crucial point in Earth's history where our collective consciousness would decide our fate. This wasn't a prophecy of doom, but of choice. We had the power to choose a path of harmony or continue down a destructive one. It pleaded with me, through images of a vibrant earth and a desolate one, to understand and help protect this knowledge. It was the key, Cal communicated, to humanity's survival and evolution. I listened, absorbing every image, every feeling, every profound insight. My own understanding of the universe expanded exponentially. My personal grief for Sarah, while still present, began to transform into something larger, a cosmic sorrow for our suffering world. but also a cosmic hope for our potential. I fully embraced my role, not just as Kale's protector, but as its student. The immense responsibility weighed on me, but it also filled me with a purpose more profound than anything I had ever known. My quiet farm, once a place of solitude and personal loss, was now the unlikely epicenter of a universal mission. The days turned into weeks, then months, each one deepening the bond, each one a lesson in the true nature of existence. 30 years. 3 decades of silence, of secrets, of a shared life lived entirely in the shadows. The meticulous routine became second nature, a complex dance of camouflage and quiet discipline. Every morning, I'd check the locks, scan the fields, listen for anything out of place. Every evening, I'd make sure the barn was secured, its hidden entrance perfectly disguised. The dust on the old farm equipment, the carefully placed bales of hay, the piles of forgotten tools, all part of an elaborate stage set designed to fool any casual observer. My personal discipline was unwavering. No visitors, no close friends, no unnecessary trips into town that might draw attention. The responsibility was a constant weight, a heavy cloak I wore every single day. Loneliness, once a familiar companion, now felt different. It wasn't just the ache for Sarah anymore. It was the profound isolation of holding a secret that could change the world, a secret I couldn't share with a single soul. The barn, once just a place for farm work, had transformed. It was a temple, a sanctuary, filled with Kale's subtle, humming energy. Over those 30 years, Kale, now fully recovered and vibrant, shared insights that stretched the very limits of my understanding. We delved into advanced physics that made our terrestrial science seem like child's play. It showed me cosmic history, not as a linear progression, but as an intricate, multi-dimensional dance across countless galaxies and timelines. The nature of consciousness, Kale explained, was not confined to our physical brains, but was a universal field, an ocean we all swam in. And time itself, I learned, was an illusion, a construct of our linear perception. We existed in an eternal present, with past and future merely reflections of our choices. My own spiritual evolution was profound. My intuition sharpened, becoming almost a sixth sense. Dreams, once just echoes of my waking life, became vivid journeys, filled with symbolic messages and glimpses of other realities. I felt a deeper connection to the universe, a sense of belonging that transcended my isolated farm. Kyle taught me about energy manipulation, not as magic, but as a natural extension of consciousness. I learned subtle, healing techniques, how to channel universal energy to mend minor ailments, and how to connect with the Earth's natural frequencies, feeling its pulse beneath my feet. But as our connection deepened, a new kind of tension began to emerge. The outside world, once a distant hum, started to press in. I began to notice subtle signs of increased surveillance. Unfamiliar vehicles, clean and out of place, would sometimes drive slowly down the remote dirt roads near my property, only to disappear as quickly as they came. Strange lights, not Kale's gentle glow, but sharp, artificial beams, would occasionally cut through the night sky, moving with a precision that was unsettling. There were unusual disturbances on my land. A broken fence post that hadn't been there before. A small, perfectly round indentation in the earth where no animal had trod. My heightened senses, honed by decades of living with Kale, picked up on these anomalies. They were like discordant notes in the symphony of my quiet life, creating a constant low thrum of anxiety. Kale, too, expressed growing concern. Its telepathic communications carried a new urgency. a warning of darker forces at play. It showed me images of human organizations, shadowy figures in sterile rooms, driven by a desire to control information, to suppress truth, to maintain their own power structures at any cost. Kyle communicated that its presence, its unique energy signature, was becoming harder to shield. The veil of secrecy was thinning. The alien's urgent message became clearer. Its mission on Earth was nearing its critical phase. The time for its message, the message of interconnectedness, of choice, of humanity's potential, was approaching. There was a sense of imminent change, both for Kale and for humanity. I felt a profound sense of impending loss, a quiet sorrow, knowing that our time together, the unique bond we shared, was finite. Yet this sorrow was tempered by a fierce determination to see our shared purpose through. I was ready. Kyle was ready. The world, I hoped, would also be ready. We had prepared for this for 30 years, and now the moment was at hand. The game was about to change. The subtle signs I'd been noticing, the occasional out-of-place vehicles and strange lights, began to turn overt. It was like a slow, creeping fog, suddenly becoming a thick, suffocating blanket. Drones, small and silent at first, then larger, more obvious ones, started appearing overhead, their buzzing a constant irritant against the quiet hum of the farm. I'd find strange equipment left behind in my fields. Small, metallic boxes with blinking lights, clearly not mine, clearly not for farming. They'd be gone the next day, leaving only flattened grass as evidence. Occasional, unexplained power outages would hit my property, lasting just long enough to be annoying, never long enough to be truly disruptive, but always leaving me with a cold feeling in my gut. It felt like they were testing the waters, probing for weaknesses. The government's presence became undeniable. It was no longer a suspicion. It was a tightening net around my property. I could almost feel the perimeter shrinking, the invisible walls closing in. My paranoia, which I had always tried to keep in check, now felt completely justified. Every shadow seemed to hold a pair of watching eyes. Every rustle in the leaves could be a hidden footstep. I found myself constantly checking the tree line, scanning the horizon, my senses on high alert even when I was just doing chores. Sleeping became difficult, punctuated by nightmares of flashing lights and shouting voices. The peace of my farm, my sanctuary, was being systematically dismantled. Kyle, too, felt the shift. Its telepathic communications, usually calm and measured, now carried an edge of urgency, almost a distress signal. It shared vivid, unsettling visions with me. I saw images of human military personnel, their faces grim and determined, clad in dark uniforms. I saw sophisticated technology, screens full of data, heat signatures, and schematics of my farm. I saw intelligence agencies, their sterile offices filled with men and women poring over satellite images, connecting dots, building a case against me. It was like watching a movie of my own impending doom playing out in Kale's mind. Kale communicated a feeling of a breach in our protective field, a weakening of the secrecy we had so carefully maintained for 3 decades. It wasn't a failure on our part, but simply the sheer persistence and technological might of the forces arrayed against us. Kyle explained that its unique energy signature, despite all our efforts to shield it, was being tracked. It was like trying to hide a star in plain sight. Eventually, its light would be noticed. The constant surveillance, the probing equipment, the power outages, it was all part of their effort to pinpoint and understand that signature. They weren't just looking for something. They were looking for Kale. We knew our time was running out. Together, Kale and I started to devise a desperate contingency plan. It wasn't about escaping completely. We both understood that was likely impossible. It was about ensuring Kale's message, its vital knowledge, could still reach humanity. Our focus shifted to transferring Kale's insights into a format that could be shared, a key to awakening. This wasn't just data. It was a pure energy imprint, a condensed form of consciousness, designed to resonate with human minds. We spent hours, days in intense telepathic communion, Kyle downloading its vast wisdom into my mind, and me trying to find a way to make it accessible, tangible, for others. The emotional weight of this plan was immense. The stakes were higher than anything I had ever faced. The potential for capture, for Kale to be taken, experimented on, destroyed, was a constant, heavy presence. Every moment we spent on this transfer felt like a race against time. There were no words exchanged, only pure intent and shared purpose. Kyle showed me how to prepare a small, hidden device, something that looked like a simple, old radio, but was actually a conduit for this energy imprint. It was designed to activate once Kale initiated its final transmission, a last-ditch effort to ensure its mission was completed. Then came the first real breach. I was walking near the perimeter of my property, checking the fence line as I did every morning. I had set up a series of simple, almost primitive tripwires over the years. Fishing line strung between trees, small bells attached, things that would alert me to any intrusion. As I walked, I saw it. A faint glint of metal where there should have been none. A small, almost invisible sensor, no bigger than my thumb, attached to a tree trunk. It was sophisticated, unlike anything I could have made, and it was positioned perfectly to detect movement near one of my hidden paths to the barn. My heart pounded, a cold dread spreading through my chest. This wasn't just a drive-by or a drone. This was an infiltration. They had been on my land, close to the barn. The decades of secrecy, the meticulous camouflage, the careful steps to avoid detection, it was all crumbling. They knew. They knew I was hiding something, and they were no longer just watching. They were closing in. The game was no longer about observation, it was about acquisition. The silence of the farm, once a comfort, now felt like a held breath before a storm. I looked towards the barn, a protective instinct surging through me. We had to act, and we had to act now. This was it. The storm broke at dawn. I woke to the sound of something I hadn't heard in years on my quiet farm. The whirring thrum of helicopters. Not one, but several, their blades chopping at the morning air, shaking the very foundations of my old house. Before I could even get to the window, the property was swarmed. Black SUVs, tinted windows reflecting the rising sun, sped down my gravel driveway, kicking up clouds of dust. Men in dark tactical gear, carrying serious-looking weapons, spilled out of the vehicles, fanning out with practiced precision. My peaceful farm, the sanctuary I had carefully cultivated for 30 years, was instantly transformed into a military operation. Flashing lights from the vehicles cut through the dim morning light, painting the scene in stark, urgent strokes. Shouted commands, too muffled to understand but clear in their authority, echoed across the fields. I could almost smell the ozone, a metallic tang of impending conflict, mixed with the damp earth and the fear that now clung to everything. My adrenaline surged, a hot, buzzing current through my veins, but beneath it, a strange, almost unsettling calm settled over me. This was it. This was what Kale and I had prepared for, what we had known was coming. It felt less like a defeat and more like the inevitable, a final act in a play that had been running for decades. I was not just a farmer anymore. I was fulfilling my destiny. My first thought was kale. I had to buy it time. I had to ensure its final task, the transmission of its message, could be completed. I moved quickly, my movements honed by years of living with a secret. I didn't try to fight them head on. That would be suicide. Instead, I focused on diversions, using my intimate knowledge of the land, every ditch, every thicket, every hidden path. I knew where the ground was soft, where the old tractor was parked, where the fallen tree offered a natural barrier. It became a desperate game of cat and mouse, played out in my own home, on my own land. I triggered the old sprinkler system near the main entrance, creating a sudden, unexpected spray of water that momentarily disoriented some of the approaching agents. I released the chickens from their coop, sending a flurry of squawking birds into the path of another team, causing them to hesitate. It was small, almost pathetic, but it bought Kale precious seconds. As I moved, ducking behind outbuildings, crawling through overgrown bushes, my mind was entirely on Kale. The fierce protectiveness I felt for it, the decades of shared life, of silent conversations, of universal truths exchanged. It all culminated in this moment. I would not let them stop Kale's mission. Not now, not after all we had been through. I could hear them getting closer, their heavy boots thudding on the ground, their voices sharper, more urgent. They were systematically sweeping the property, closing in on the barn, the heart of our sanctuary. I knew I couldn't stop them from reaching it, but I could delay them, make them work for it. I thought about the old tripwires I had set, the ones they had bypassed with their sophisticated sensors. Maybe they hadn't found all of them. I veered towards the back of the property, hoping to draw some of them away, to lead them on a wild goose chase through the denser woods. As I ran, a sudden, blinding light erupted from the direction of the barn. It wasn't the harsh glare of a searchlight, but a soft, pulsating, otherworldly glow. It started as a faint shimmer, then intensified rapidly, turning the entire structure into a beacon of pure, ethereal light. It pulsed with an internal rhythm, like a cosmic heartbeat, casting long, dancing shadows across the fields. This was it. This was Kale's final act. I stopped, breathless, watching in awe. The light was beautiful and terrifying all at once. It was a spectacle that transcended anything I had ever witnessed, a silent testament to the power and purpose of the being I had protected for so long. The barn, my old, weathered barn, was now a vessel for something magnificent, something beyond human comprehension. I could feel the energy radiating from it, a warm, resonant hum that vibrated through my very bones. It was Kale, completing its mission, transferring its knowledge, its essence into the device we had prepared. The agents, too, had stopped. They stood frozen, weapons lowered, their faces illuminated by the strange, intense glow. For a moment, even they seemed awestruck, their tactical precision momentarily forgotten in the face of the impossible. But the pause was brief. Shouts of "Go, go, go!" broke the spell, and they surged forward again, directly towards the glowing barn. I knew my time was up. I had done all I could. As the first agents reached the barn doors, their figures silhouetted against the blinding light, I felt a sharp, sudden blow to the back of my head. The world tilted, then spun into darkness. I didn't even hear the words of my captors, only felt the cold, hard ground rushing up to meet me. Overwhelmed by their superior force, I was captured. The last image burned into my mind, even as consciousness faded. was the intensely glowing barn. Then only darkness, a profound sense of loss washed over me, a gut-wrenching feeling of separation from Cale, my friend, my companion, my teacher. Despite the alien's completion of its task, despite knowing its message was out there, the failure to protect it from this final moment of exposure, the thought of what they might do to it, was a crushing weight. The world went black. I woke up to the smell of antiseptic and stale coffee. My head throbbed, a dull, persistent ache that mirrored the emptiness in my gut. I was in a small, windowless room. The walls painted a bland, institutional beige. A single metal table and 2 chairs were the only furniture. The air conditioning hummed, a constant low drone that grated on my nerves. This was a far cry from the quiet solitude of my farm, the familiar scent of hay and damp earth. A man in a dark suit sat opposite me. He had cold, unblinking eyes and a face that showed no emotion. He introduced himself as Agent Miller. His voice was flat, without inflection, like a machine speaking. He started asking questions, endless questions. Where did it come from? How long had I known it? What did it want? What could it do? Each question was delivered with the same detached precision, a relentless drilling into my mind. I kept my answers vague, evasive. I spoke of a meteor, a strange creature I found injured, something I nursed back to health. I played the part of the confused old farmer who stumbled upon something he didn't understand. But Miller wasn't fooled. His eyes never left mine, searching for any flicker of deceit. He spoke of national security, of threats to humanity, of my patriotic duty. He tried to make me feel guilty, to make me believe I had put countless lives at risk. They kept me awake for what felt like days. The lights in the room never dimmed. They brought me food, tasteless and cold, which I barely touched. My mind was a whirlwind of memories, of Cale's gentle presence, its profound wisdom, the quiet understanding we shared. I thought of the glowing barn, Cale's final act, and a strange sense of calm settled over me. A quiet defiance. They could break my body, but they couldn't touch what Kyle had given me, what Cale had done. Agent Miller changed his tactics. He started showing me images, blurry photos of the barn, of the wreckage. He showed me schematics of advanced technology, hinting at what they believed Cale represented. He spoke of power, of energy sources, of scientific breakthroughs. It was clear they saw Cale not as a being, but as a resource to be exploited, a weapon to be wielded. Their fear was palpable, but it was a fear born of ignorance and a hunger for control. They didn't want to understand. They wanted to possess. I realized then that their agenda was far removed from any genuine concern for humanity's well-being. They saw Cale's knowledge as something to be monopolized, to give them an advantage, not as a gift to be shared, to uplift all. They were blind to the peaceful message, the universal harmony Cale had tried to convey. It was heartbreaking to witness such profound misunderstanding, such a narrow-minded approach to something so extraordinary. Despite the relentless pressure, I felt a strange sense of peace. I knew Cale's message was out there. I had witnessed its transmission. It was a powerful, undeniable force, a seed planted in the collective consciousness. I sensed a shift in the global atmosphere, subtle tremors of awareness beginning to spread. It was almost imperceptible, like the first stirrings of spring after a long winter, but I felt it. This was a direct result of Cale's final act, a ripple effect that no government agency could contain. In my brief moments of forced sleep, my dreams of my wife returned. They were different now, not warnings, but reassurances. Her smile was gentle, her eyes full of understanding. She seemed to be telling me that everything was unfolding as it should, that our shared mission, hers, mine, and Kale's, was a success. It reinforced my resolve, strengthened my belief in the power of truth, and in the enduring spirit of Kale. Then came the announcement, delivered by Agent Miller, with a chilling lack of empathy. He leaned forward, his voice a low monotone, almost a whisper. The entity, he called Kale, was contained. Its unique energy signature proved incompatible with Earth's atmosphere once exposed. It disintegrated, a necessary measure for national security. The words hit me like a physical blow. My breath caught in my throat. My heart felt like it had stopped. Disintegrated. Kale, gone. The profound grief that washed over me was unlike anything I had ever known, a deeper cut than even my wife's passing. It was the loss of a friend, a teacher, a connection to something cosmic and beautiful. But even through the crushing sorrow, a fierce spiritual understanding rose within me. Kyle was not truly gone. Its physical form might have vanished, but its essence, its message, its energy lived on. It had completed its mission. It had done what it came here to do. The government's lie, their cold explanation, was a thin veil over a profound truth. They had destroyed the vessel, but the treasure had already been delivered. The injustice, the tragedy of humanity's fear-driven response was stark. They had killed a messenger, not the message. And that message was now free, spreading its light across the world, beyond their control, beyond their understanding. I looked at Agent Miller, my eyes filled with tears, but also with a quiet, unshakable power. He had no idea what he had just unleashed. I was eventually released. They called it a conditional discharge, but it felt more like they just didn't know what else to do with me. I was a loose end, an anomaly they couldn't neatly categorize or silence. They probably figured I was too old, too broken, or perhaps too insane to be a threat. My farm, my home, was a desolate wasteland. The government's investigation had ravaged it, leaving behind a scarred earth, upturned soil, and splintered wood. It was a stark reminder of what had transpired, a physical manifestation of the violence and fear that had swept through my quiet life. I was physically free, but I was forever changed. The weight of loss, the burden of profound knowledge, settled deep within my bones. The world looked different now, seen through eyes that had witnessed the impossible and the tragic. I carried Kale's story, its essence, its sacrifice, like a sacred trust. And then I started to see it, subtle at first, like a whisper on the wind, but growing steadily stronger.
Signs that someone was tracking them. Boot prints, spent cartridges, the occasional crow feasting on what was left of a warning. "You ever think maybe that crate wasn't meant to be found?" Evelyn asked quietly. "Maybe," Cole said, tightening his reins. "But when the world hides something this hard, it's usually worth finding." They reached Fort Wren at dusk. The place was a graveyard. Walls blackened, watchtower collapsed, banners turned to ash. Evelyn knelt by a charred beam and brushed away the sand. Beneath it, she found a rusted locket. Inside was a tiny photograph of two men, Cole and another, nearly identical, wearing a captain's insignia. "James," Cole whispered. He was always smiling, even when bullets were flying. He turned the locket over and froze. Scratched into the back were 4 words. "It wasn't me. Find Clara." Clara Dane, the missing soldier, the name that kept circling back like a ghost. Cole stared out over the ruins. If she was the last one to see him alive, maybe she's the one who took the gold. Evelyn shook her head. Or maybe she's the one who tried to clear his name. "Either way," he muttered, "she's our next step." That night, Evelyn dreamt again. The stagecoach, the fire, the sound of her husband's voice calling her name. But this time, another voice joined it. You were never supposed to open it. She woke with a start, sweat slicking her skin. Cole was gone. Panic spiked. She stumbled out into the moonlight and froze. At the edge of camp, two men held Cole at gunpoint. Marshall Maddox, one of them, drawled, "You should have stayed out of army business." Cole didn't flinch. "Tell your boss he'll have to do better than a midnight ambush." Before Evelyn could shout, one man spotted her. "We got company." A gun went off. Evelyn dropped behind a rock, heart pounding. Cole fired twice, hitting one of the men square in the shoulder. The other ran, disappearing into the darkness. When it was over, Cole leaned against the rock, blood trickling from a graze on his arm. "You all right?" he asked. "You're bleeding. You should see the other guy." Despite the danger, she couldn't help the small laugh that escaped her. It was the first time she'd laughed in years, raw, startled, almost human. "They said something about army business," she murmured. "What if this goes deeper than your brother?" Cole nodded grimly. "Oh, it does. Whoever they are, they think that crate still holds the key." By morning, the survivors' trail led north to Silver Creek, a mining town swallowed by greed. Its streets were ruled by a man named Gideon Rourke, former lieutenant, now self-made kingpin. Cole had history with him. Bad history. Rourke commanded Fort Wren the night it burned, Cole said. "If anyone knows what happened to James or Clara, it's him." Evelyn's pulse quickened. Then,
Star seeds waiting to bloom. The real adventure has only just begun.